Britain's had kings and queens for more than 1,000 years, and as with US presidents, some have been magnificent, others have been what we might now call problematic. Henry VIII, for example, had very serious issues with what would now be known as toxic masculinity. His daughter, Queen Mary, was quite fond of burning Protestants in front of jeering crowds. Similarly, the British Empire committed many heinous deeds in the context of a darker, more ignorant time.
That doesn't make sense.
But that all happened in the past. That's how history works. None of today's royal family had anything to do with those problematic issues. So why should they apologise for them?
Why? Why?
Well, campaigners in the Caribbean nations are again demanding that King Charles issues a formal apology for his ancestors' involvement in the slave trade. They also want financial reparations from today's public purse to compensate them for their past suffering.
Is he all right upstairs?
British royals are now routinely barracked for ancestral sins on every tour that they go on, with demands that they issue apologies to Indigenous communities in Canada and accusations they've crushed the development of Jamaica. This week, the Church of England committed to raising £1 billion for reparations, even as its congregations dwindle and its churches fall apart. The exact same movement's happening across the United States, with an increasing clamour for the descendants of slaves to be compensated for their ancestors' suffering. Now look, there's no denying that slavery was an evil stain on humanity. In fact, that's why the British Empire eventually made it illegal 217 years ago.
I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
But even at its height, very few people actually owned slaves. And one thing is for certain, none of the people who foot the bill today were responsible for any of it.
Stop it. Get some help.
To me, this entire narrative is regressive and divisive. How can we ever be colourblind, judging people by their character, not their skin colour, if we continue to preach that half the world's inherently evil and the other half are to blame for it? Well, joining me now is today's pack, author of The Psychosis of Whiteness, Kehinde Andrews, comedian and podcaster James Barr, and from LA, the YouTuber Amala Ekunobi. Welcome to all of you. All right, Kehinde, welcome back to Uncensored, along with James, two of my favourite guests. OK, I need you to sell this to me, because I've thought about this a lot, and I understand why people want people to express regret for what happened, why they want to say, look, this was awful.
Okay.
I completely concur. Slavery was one of the most evil things in human existence. I just can't get my head round why King Charles should be issuing apologies for something he never did. And secondly, what difference it would make. And thirdly, on reparations, how does paying money now for the sins of people hundreds of years ago make any real difference either?
Fact. Well, because the thing about the apology really is the route to reparations. Because this may have happened a long time ago, but the legacy is still with us. You go to the Caribbean, there's no black people in the Caribbean apart from slavery, and it's one of the poorest regions in the world. And if you're in the UK, and the king is the perfect example of the ostentatious wealth, the wealth we have here is because of what happened in slavery. So people in the Caribbean are poor today because of slavery, and therefore there is a debt owed to them.
Why do you care if King Charles says, I'm sorry?
Oh, no. For me, the apology is not for a moral issue. That's so you then get reparations. That's why he won't say sorry. Because when you say sorry, you accept responsibility and you have to pay for it.
But he hates slavery as much as you and I.
It's not about, it's about the debt that is owed. People in Jamaica are poor because of slavery. People in Britain are rich. And he's the perfect example of someone who is rich. It was the Royal African Company, which was started by Charles II, that enslaved the most people that look like me in the world. Fact. There is a debt owed. That wealth is with us and the poverty is with us, which is why it needs to be returned.
All right, Amala, what do you think of this? Because, look, opinions run strong on both sides. Where do you sit?
I stand anti-reparations on this issue. I understand and acknowledge that slavery occurred. It was a massive and heinous transgression. But to think that people who never committed such a transgression are somehow responsible for the current trauma of people living in today's time who never experienced that transgression is quite frankly ridiculous to me.
Is he all right upstairs?
And to give an apology is to, as Hindi says, admit fault. And he is not at fault. He is not the one responsible for the slavery of the past, nor is he responsible for the issues that Black people in the UK or in the Caribbean or here in the US, as we're having many discussions here about reparations, are facing.
Right. I mean, James Barr, where does this end? If you take the idea that sins of the past have to be atoned with apology and reparations, do we now go to the Italians and say, right, the Romans invaded us, we want money from you people? The Vikings, do we go to Scandinavia and demand money from descendants of the Vikings? In other words, once you establish a principle of this,
Okay.
where does it end?
If we're going to trivialise it, then I would like to.
Why is that trivial?
I would like to talk about how the church perhaps owe LGBTQ plus people billions of pounds.
But why do you
for
think
the
I trivialise?
shame
Why have I
that they've
trivialised it?
caused queer people? And to be honest, it's not even a trivial argument. I think we should turn Westminster Abbey into a gay club.
What?
I genuinely believe that King Charles should say sorry, and everyone here is
Yeah, but
saying.
answer my question, though.
What was your question? Your question was that.
Well, my question is that if you assume that sins of the past, right, should be atoned with apology
I
and
think
reparations.
it's about who is the
What about marauding hordes of Romans, Vikings, and so on who killed a lot of people, caused total
But we
mayhem,
also did
caused
that.
destruction?
And we are a really
Right,
rich country.
So here's my point. Where's the line for you?
I think the line is that the royal family are still profiteering off of thousands of years of racism currently, and whether it's conscious or unconscious.
How are they?
Because they own property that was built by slaves or funded by slaves. So we need to acknowledge that. We need to say sorry for that.
Fact.
And we need to do the work, and we need to pay that debt back.
Why does say? Oh, look, I get the sorry leads to reparations, but the actual apology. You know, I wouldn't apologise for what my ancestors did.
Well, you should. I think, to be honest, I think everybody in this country should apologise.
Why? We never stop apologising.
Because,
you
well,
stop
exactly.
apologising?
But you won't apologise for this, and that's crazy to me because this whole society.
If
we're
King
all
Charles
sitting
was
in-
found to be holding right now, and by the way, modern day slavery is a massive problem.
But Piers-
There are there are millions of people held in modern day slavery, right? If the royal family were found to be holding people in modern day slavery, absolutely throw the book at them, right? But they're not. This had nothing to do with them.
Piers, come on. There is a Proceeds of Crime Act in this country. The act may have happened, but the wealth is still here. That's the problem.
Yes.
The poverty is still here. This is not a past thing. This is a now thing. If you're saying you want to fix the problems of the Caribbean and for Black people in America and here, we don't have the money. And where's the money? It's with people like the King.
You got me.
So we have to return the money. That's reparations.
The Church of England now says the 100 million earmarked by Church of England for new investment to repair damage caused by historic links to slavery isn't enough, the report says. They're recommending £1 billion. There are churches closing all over the country, right? Vicars are being paid less and less, and there are less and less of them wanting to do the job anyway.
That doesn't make sense.
The conditions they're living in are getting worse and worse.
That's their fault. That's their fault. They're
my
the
point.
makers of their own doing, Piers.
How are we
That's
going
their fault.
So why bankrupt the Church of England?
Because all they need to do is
to
sell
pay
one of
again
their
for sins of
cathedrals.
the past?
Sell a cathedral. Sell the jewels you stole. It's not difficult.
They have plenty of
How
them.
many gay people in this country live in property that may have, if you go back far enough, have been established from slavery?
I'm sure a lot.
What happens
And you know
to
what,
them?
Piers? They should
What
also,
happens to their
as I
home?
just said, I think everybody living in this country, in the UK, should apologise
Right.
for the horrendous things
So
our ancestors
60 odd million people issue public apologies.
I'm down for that.
And if there's any trace on any line back to any slavery, anyone's property which can be linked back to slavery has to be what?
We
Given
are
to who?
We are talking about,
Given
you're talking
to
about normal
Hindi?
people now, but we are talking about King Charles, the royal family. They have endless amounts of properties. How many bedrooms does Buckingham Palace have? You don't need all of that. Sell this stuff. Give the money back
Royal
to the people
family
you stole
bring in-
from.
all right, let
if
me
you
go-
steal something, you give it
Let
back.
me go back to Amal, who's been listening very patiently. I mean,
Britain. So is Charles overseeing an imperiled Britain?
or are
And
you
answer
massively
that question.
overthinking it? And talking
I'm-
overthinking it, Paula,
Yes.
this idea that it's all about the colonial British history, soaked in blood and gore,
Stop it.
with a butterfly on his shoulder. Are we now dragging ourselves away from the colonial barbarism which has bedeviled this country and our dreadful monarchy?
I mean, I need to come back to that comment because you're saying it
Okay.
it with a tone of cynicism that's
Yes.
worrying me.
Yeah.
Let me just answer your question in relation to what I thought of the picture. And it goes back to the topic of how the royal family as an institution
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
is being challenged at the moment. When you look at that picture, Piers, does that picture scream to you TikTok generation?
Wait for it.
Actually, what does scream to me?
No, it doesn't.
Well, hang on.
It's a very challenging.
Can I answer the question?
Well, when I finished, it's a very challenging. It's a very challenging picture, one that I think a lot of teenagers are going to struggle to comprehend.
Are
you serious?
Without
having some lessons.
I actually think Johnny
that traditional portrait would have made sense. It made any more sense to a teenager.
I think Johnny Yeo
That doesn't make sense.
It's a masterpiece because he's managed to blend traditional with something very contemporary. And actually, yeah, it reminded me of a TikTok.
And
it's actually made for the TikTok generation.
Did you not think of your period then, Piers?
No, I didn't.
But he also got the seal of approval of the most important person, which was Queen Camilla, who said, "You've got him."
Yeah, and she
His face is brilliant, without a doubt.
I love it. You know, we're all talking about it on the front page of all the papers. It's a smart painting by a very smart guy. Are you serious? Once did Johnny Yeo once did a portrait of George Bush when he was president, made up entirely of porn magazine covers, right? And no one realised till they looked really closely, and it was brilliant. He's an artistic genius, so I think it's great. Kinsey, what do you think of it?
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Yeah, I love the way that they captured his gentle face. I thought it was a beautiful picture. I think it's whimsical like he is, and I think that it's lovely. And I if the TikTok generation doesn't get it, that's like the least of their problems.
Yeah. Well, they need that generation.
I'm not
but there's
sure
this
that's
colonial
true.
stuff. I mean, I don't want to labour the point, but why does everything have to always come back to empire, colonial past, blood and gore? Why can't we, for once, just go, you know what, let's look forward. There's a lovely butterfly on his shoulder, the metamorphosis to a great monarch. Why can't we just be positive? Why do we have to always drag it back hundreds of years to when people did unspeakable things to each other?
It's intriguing that you talk about history, and we've been talking about history in this conversation, and yet when you talk about colonialism and the damage that it has caused...
Who began the end of slavery?
Very good question.
Who began the end of slavery?
Well, to talk about the end of slavery...
Who began it?
To talk about the end of slavery, we have to talk about the beginning of slavery.
And I think we've done that.
No, well, have we, Piers?
Oh, I think so,
Have
Paula.
we? But because you've had enough.
Stop it. Get some help.
Well, I had enough, but what's the point of constantly...
It's not about...
What is the point of constantly relitigating it?
About colonialism that spans the world. This conversation about colonialism...
Okay.
...is not going to stop just because you have
What
had
conversation
enough.
do you want? You want them all to say sorry. Sorry. Is that it?
Could we own that they do both? That actually, by reaching back and spanning forwards... I was in Eastern Europe...
Are you serious?
And this top TV exec said, I love Britain. And I said, do you? Because I'm always a little bit ambivalent about my own country, as you know. I love it.
Britain, I know, yeah.
No, I don't hate it. I love it, but there's room for improvement. And he said, I love the way you've got all this history. You've got this line, this constitutional line.
Wait for it.
You can follow for thousands of years. So can we own that? Can we enjoy it? But can we also interrogate it? So Paula feels included,
Actually-
you feel included, and the picture's celebrated.
Fine. When do I ever hear Paula look back on the history of his country with anything but
Paula,
negativity?
come on.
Oh, wow. Really, Piers?
Tell me one great thing.
Then we need to talk more.
When have you last?
We need to
You never
talk.
stop talking.
We need to talk more, if that's
You
what
never
you think.
stop trashing
You
the
have
history of his country.
You
Say
have to...
something positive,
Well,
Paula.
let's just remind the viewers, I'm an immigrant.
Oh my God!
I was adopted by this country, and I was very grateful to be adopted by this country.
why don't you big it up?
However...
Why do you want us constantly feeling guilty and apologising for it?
I'll wait.
We gave you a home, you just said. Wonderful.
wait.
Thank you, Britain.
I'll wait.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
When you're ready. However, that doesn't mean that in terms of understanding my history and your history, which is forever entwined, that we shouldn't look at both sides of the story.
Is he all right upstairs?
And at the moment, we are only just opening that chapter.
What do you want to achieve?
In terms of
What
our
do you
history.
want to achieve?
And isn't that a good thing,
No,
Piers?
it's not.
The
What
fact
do you
that we
want to
know that
achieve?
Meghan is 43% ancestry Nigerian.
Somebody come and look at this.
That's a fantastic
I thought it was 47.
I thought it was
43.
I thought it was
she was
43.
born-
Thank you. Just
clarify that.
Isn't that a fantastic
It's my
thing
memories.
to discover?
Didn't she go to Malta and claim she was Maltese a few years ago?
I don't know about that.
She did her genealogy. It came out in her Archetypes podcast.
So she's
last year,
Maltese,
didn't
Irish, Nigerian.
Well,
There's a
we're
lot
all
going on.
mixed.
Not to unpack.
So
I've got a bit of
you see,
Eastern
I
European. I'll be heading
so-
to Eastern Europe quite soon, claiming my ancestry there.
And so you see, I referenced the book that we are all a part of, and I'm just saying.
Stop it.
That this discussion about colonialism, one that King Charles seems
What
to be
do you
ready,
want him to do?
Seems to be ready to
What do you want
open
him to
up
do?
and discuss about. I want him to open up and discuss it.
And say what?
I want him to be able to reference.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Some of the issues that the Commonwealth countries
What do you want
who
him to
have
say?
been affected by colonialism and to this day continue.
He is engaging more than
That's what I understand.
any
And that's,
other member
that's
of the
fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's
and that's
What do you want him to say and do?
And
That's
that,
going
and
to make it.
and that is fantastic, isn't
Paula,
it?
what's he going to say or do that
Because-
changes a damn thing?
Because what happens is we have a lot of people saying, "Well, I don't want to hear about this.
Yeah, boy.
I don't want to hear about this. I want to stop the
What do
conversation."
you want him to say and do?
I want him to open up the conversation.
say what?
Which is what he is
And say
doing.
what?